We have a busy season right now. We are celebrating lots of things this week, including the birthday of the Reverend Jessie Jackson. You know, y'all that listened yesterday heard some rumors, trying to multitask here in the studio. Amazing to have Asha Kwesi and Reverend Jessie Jackson. Did I say Reverend Jessie Jackson? In the studio at the same time. Reverend Jessie Jackson is in town. He's just taken over KJLH, and we're happy to have him here. Founder, president of Rainbow Push.
To do this. I am amazed at how many people listen and engage in conversation this time of morning on this station. And I do a national network radio show every week now for some time.
I know.
And LA is in the mix. And the calls we get from LA, at 5 a.m. and Oakland at 5 a.m. is almost more than New York, because on the East Coast.
Because we have to go places, and it takes a long time to drive places in California. You got to be at work at 8, as Stevie Wonder always says. You better be leaving right about now, or you're going to be late.
No argument here, but the joy to see you again.
It's great to see you.
I thought I was going to see Karen Bass this morning.
Well, you're going to see her beautiful voice. She was elected, for those who don't know, to the State Assembly in 2004, representing the 47th Assembly District. In May 2008, she made history when she became the 67th Speaker of the California Assembly.
She moved up so fast.
Yeah, she's still moving.
What a brilliant woman.
Still moving. We love her.
She is governor material.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. Governor Bass.
You look at Jerry Brown and Meg Whitman. You look at Karen Bass.
Oh goodness! Can we get her in the ballot right now? Do we have time? Karen Bass is joining us. Good morning, Speaker Bass.
Good morning, and good morning, Reverend Jackson.
Good morning, Miss Speaker.
Sorry I can't be there for your birthday tonight. We're up in Sacramento voting on a budget today, which we haven't had for more than 3 months.
No, I think you're boycotting me.
It's all about you. Let the state go down in flames with no budget. It's all about your birthday party.
Well, actually, it's not so much a birthday party, but it is that. But also, we have 203 children in college. And it's really a fundraiser to sustain those kids in college. Many of them are so brilliant but poor. And so I go out of my way. As I travel, I go maybe to 2 or 3 high schools a week, even now, and 3 or 4 jails a month, trying to connect with our youth who are not in jail to go another way and don't go. Those who are there to figure out how to come back and not go back. And those, who have need to get the help that they need. And I was just reading today, Karen, where Newt Gingrich, the line for Republicans should be this fall that Democrats are the food stamp party, they are the paycheck party. But the implication of that is so full of contempt. After all, food stamp, helps the farmer. It helps the grocery store. It helps.
That's right.
It helps the hungry. The time when poverty is expanding, the one to, with his millionaire self, speak with contempt of food stamps. In the LA Unified School District, and Chicago for that matter, about 88% of the kids are on free food lunch. Which means they qualify. Therefore, they really need free breakfast and free dinner. Remember, those same kids need reading glasses and don't have them. Or they need hearing support and they don't have it. Or they need dental help and don't have it. So to speak of the poor in such contemptuous terms, while they argue about who and who is not Christian, oh my God. I mean, I read somewhere, feed the hungry as a measure of character, and clothe the naked and set the captive free. I read that someplace, and I believe it to be so. But it's almost a defining line.
Well, I mean, how can you be a paycheck party when you don't create any jobs? Because you have to have a job to get a paycheck.
Well, we were losing 750,000 jobs a month on the Republican when they allowed the banks to not be overseen and ran amok and sank our economy. And we were losing. If you can imagine the Gulf oil spill, we're talking about the hemorrhaging of oil, the gushing. We had to stop the gushing, then the recovery. President Barack had to stop the gushing of 750,000 jobs a month. We were on our way out the back door. It took some time to stop the gushing. Now we're moving toward the recovery, albeit slowly. We had to break the gushing because the whole global economy was sinking. So it seems that the reason why I'm so glad that on the serious side, Sister Karen is in Sacramento today, because this vote has so many different dimensions. It's not, first of all, President Barack is not on the ballot now. It's not about him. That's the media's hype. It's about the makeup of the Congress. People like Congressman Waters, who have very strong committee positions, would lose them. Congressman John Conyers, chair of House Judiciary, would lose that. The role of Ed Towns in the Congress would go. But not just that, Karen, state legislatures around the country stand to lose big time, including the rearrangement of districts, right?
That's right, absolutely. And, our state has been in crisis for a couple of years, and we have really felt it very hard with the foreclosure crisis, unemployment, et cetera. And we need help from the federal government. And if we think for 1 minute that help would be coming if the Republicans were in charge, we have another thing coming, because it's not going to happen. And we remember Newt from 1994. He was the one that wanted to put our kids in orphanages, if we remember.
Well, they want to bail out Afghanistan and bail out Iraq, a war of choice that had no basis in fact. We took bad information and fought the war and act as if we are the home team and the Iraqis are the insurgents. They are at home. We are a long way from home in Iraq. And they go and kill and recreate a society and then engage in nation building while our citizens are abandoned is obviously wrong. So the reason I'm urging people to vote this November, the stakes are very high. They are about food stamps. It is about action. And Dick Armey says that the federal government should step out of education, leave education to states, Karen. Can you imagine removing the federal dimension of the budget and the education of the children of the state of California?
That's right.
It's unimaginable. They want to fight for the top 1% to maintain a tax cut. That is what's driving extremes of wealth and poverty. The wealthy, not because they work harder, they've been subsidized, and the poor have been induced into poverty because of the, as opposed to a reconciling situation where you share wealth and end misery. The extremes of wealth and poverty now are at record highs, and the bank foreclosure, home foreclosure crisis is driven by their banking policy. Even as we fight for student loan debt forgiveness, Karen, one of our favorite subjects, as you know, all this is driven by the politics of our times. So I want people to listen today. Politics is not the perfect science, but it's the only science going. You vote the person closest to your views, not who holds your views absolutely.
And then you have to hold them accountable for getting things done.
Yeah, you vote the person closest to your views, or not vote is to vote the person farthest from your views. So in that sense, you vote when you don't vote.
And I think sometimes we stop paying attention and we don't know who's fighting for us. I mean, we know you're fighting for us. Hopefully we know Karen Bass is fighting for us and will continue to when she, goes to Congress and then hopefully on to the governorship at some point.
Indeed.
But, you're hosting Congressman Clyburn, and many of us maybe are not even aware of what he's up to, what he's doing. He's going to be in town, and how important it is to pay attention and to, be cognizant of what's going on so we can support these things.
What is at stake so high? I'm sorry, Karen.
Well, absolutely, because I think that, a lot of us might see Mr. Clyburn on the news, but not really realize who he is and the position that he holds in Congress, because he's the number 3 in power under the Speaker and the Majority Leader. And he's a wonderful man, and I just thought that folks in our city needed to know who he was. Of course, he's very well known throughout the South, but I don't believe he is well known in California. So he'll be coming here on Saturday. We're going to have a community meeting with him at the famed Renaissance building at 10:30 on Saturday morning. And so I would encourage everyone to come out and hear Mr. Clyburn.
And this is free. People
yes,
can come
absolutely.
out.
It's free. It's the Urban Issues Forum that Dr. Anthony Samad puts on a monthly basis, and typically they're on Friday, but because of his travel schedule, we've scheduled it for Saturday. So it's this Saturday, 10:30, Fame Renaissance, right near the corner of Western and Adams, 1968 Adams Boulevard.
Of course.
And these people will find a mean. Yesterday, Rush Limbaugh called President Barack Obama a jackass.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yesterday. And you see, I'm on 400 and some radio stations and all over television. And so jackass one day. Next day, he's not a Christian. Next day, he's not an American. These are very vicious, violent attacks, and mean words precede mean action. Ignorance, fear, hatred, and violence follow each other. This is a very violent climate in which we're functioning. Now, if we did not have a stick to fight back with, we could really complain. We got a stick. When you drop your voting rod, you drop your stick. You're in a fight in the jungle here, political jungle. And why did you drop your weapon? Because every swing is not a home run. When Moses got to the Red Sea to test his faith one more time, he looked up and saw the Red Sea was an ominous notion and getting across it, and mountains on both sides. And in the fit of faithlessness, he dropped his rod. He just gave up. His rod turned to a snake and was about to bite him. He could have died from snake bite on the Egyptian side of the Red Sea. He regained his faith and extended the rod, and great things happened, like the waters parted. Many of us drop our rod, our voting rod, and it goes to Sacramento and bites us. It goes to Washington and bites us. We cannot afford to drop our rod because the challenges are great. We've fought great challenges, and we've never lost a battle we fought. Never. And we've never won a battle unless we fought. But to fight the battle of slavery, we won that battle. Long battle. The women's right to vote, we won that battle. Workers' right to organize, we won that battle.
Well, in California, it feels like we lost a few with Prop 209, Prop 187.
You lose some, you win some. When you look back over the fights, because everybody don't throw a no-hitter every day,
Yeah.
You don't strike out every player, because after all, you have fierce opposition. But to tell you what, try batting, try playing baseball without a bat. Try that.
And, we have an opportunity with the election this year, number one. Arnold is going to be going out in the next couple of months. Are we going to try this experiment again and elect somebody with absolutely no experience in Meg Whitman, who clearly is campaigning on an agenda that, in my opinion, attacks women of color? She wants to come in. She wants to eliminate cow work. She wants to eliminate the social safety net. We have an opportunity to not go in that direction. And also, we have an opportunity to elect Kamala Harris for an issue that is very important to me, I know is important to the Reverend and to you, Dominique, on criminal justice issues. She believes in being smart on crime and not just locking everybody up. Kamala and I have done legislation together to reduce the recidivism rate and to help people when they are leaving incarceration to reintegrate back into our society. So we have a lot of stake right here in California.
She is the
come
real
November 2nd.
Deal. There are more young black men in jail than there are in college. With 2.3 Americans in prison, 1.4 million or thereabout over 1 million are black men, and about 500,000 are Latinos. They have set up these jail industrial complex traps for us. They're building whole industries, whole towns off of the arrest and processing of our people, and Pamela saying, let's be smart. Many of those young nonviolent criminals should be out on an ankle bracelet, being monitored, or they should be in apprenticeship training. You look at all these vacant houses and abandoned lots now. What jobs you could create if on those vacant lots and abandoned houses, young people could learn how to pull off a board and put up a window pane. They could learn to fix roofs and become plumbers and glazers and carpenters. You could turn this minus into a plus. And Sister Harris, she thinks in those terms, how to redeem, not just how to punish.
Right, absolutely.
And Speaker Bass, I just want to circle back to the town hall meeting, gathering, whatever it is, called on Saturday with Congressman James Clyburn. Is this like a Q&A thing for the public where people will be engaged? Is it a meet and greet? What is exactly going on?
Oh, no, it's absolutely what you said. It's an opportunity to hear Mr. Clyburn speak for, 15, 20 minutes, and then we open it up to the audience so that he can answer questions. Healthcare reform, does it really benefit our community? The finance reform, what difference will that make in our lives? The elections coming up November 2nd around the country. Pretty much the news is trying to make it seem as though, there's no hope for Democrats, that the Republicans are going to take over and destroy everything. I happen to believe that's not true. Of course, what's key is that we do have to go out and vote and make sure that that's not true, make sure that we send Barbara Boxer back to Washington, D.C. But, it's an opportunity to hear from, the third most powerful person in Congress, Mr. Clyburn, as Majority Whip, and to hear his take on things.
He has something to say, and he says wears it well.
Well, speaking
Exactly. He
of
certainly
Congressman Clyburn, we got a surprise this morning. I wasn't expecting him, but he's on the phone. I guess his people are everywhere, and he hears us talking about him. Congressman James E. Clyburn. Clyburn is with us on the phone.
From
Welcome.
South Carolina.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, sir.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jessie, Karen. How you guys this morning?
Doing
good,
just
good.
fine. Looking forward to you coming to town.
Can
I'm
tell
looking
he's
forward
got
to it.
seniority. He calls
Thank you
you
so much for
Jessie
having
and
me.
Karen.
Well, we grew up together. When I was a little kid, and he was a big rising star. And I used to just run around and try to get his autograph.
Well, there was a time when I would deny that, but having just turned the big 7-0 last July, Jessie, I'm going to let you get away with that today.
Well, speaking of birthdays, I
I'm
celebrate
looking forward to your next birthday.
my own birthday this week, and thanks be to God, and thank God that Mama is still alive, and so it's a big family deal in so many ways. It's one of these milestones, as you know.
That's great. That's great. Absolutely.
Well, Speaker Bass was just talking about, and we've talked also with Reverend Jackson about these doom and gloom predictions for the midterm elections. We're not buying it on this show at all, because while they may see some gains on the Republican side, as they historically do every time they're out of power, they're also going to see some losses. What's your take?
Arguably, Moses got across the Red Sea when the water was low. In many ways, with this issue of low voter turnout, if we vote disproportionate to our numbers, our strength can be bigger, Jim, than our numbers, right? If we vote higher than our numbers, this is really, when there's low voter turnout, this is the moment for us to strike.
You are absolutely correct, and I tell you what, and you were right not to accept all this gloom and doom. I've been out there crisscrossing the country, and I can tell you it is a tremendous joy to see how engaged people are becoming. The fact of the matter is, coming out of August, the month when people were concentrating on how to get their children back in school, whether or not they were going to be able to afford staying in school, these things were on people's minds, and all of a sudden they found out that when we passed the health care bill, we just didn't pass reforms in health care and this Patients' Bill of Rights. We also reformed education. Young people now see that when they've got those notices from the colleges and universities that money would not be available, all of a sudden Pell Grants of $5,500 per pupil, $1.6 billion federal investment in historical black colleges and universities, $2 billion into community colleges. They didn't realize at the time that we weren't just reforming health care, we had their educational pursuits in mind as well. And they are now realizing that, and they see the relationship between the re-election of Democrats to Congress and their support for the proposals laid out by President Obama as being building blocks toward getting them to where they want to be. And so I'm very encouraged about what I'm seeing and hearing out there over the last 2 or 3 days.
Brother Jim, what also strikes me is that many kids are not graduating with a guaranteed debt without a guaranteed job. But they can still stay home and get insurance coverage.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's a big break. You're back home, but you're still insured by your parents' jobs.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. And we live here. In fact, I was just listening to a report this morning, South Carolina, where I am and where Jesse Jackson used to be, where Karen Bass was.
Don't do that to me, Jim. Don't do that to me.
We're on the buckle on the stroke belt here in the Southeast, and they were talking about young people now being victims of stroke and things that we thought were old people diseases. People were living in fear, seeing a child born with diabetes and not ever being able to get insurance, or a guy getting prostate cancer and all of a sudden finds out that his insurance company is now dropping him. We got rid of all those things. Just like we started out with the civil rights laws, first of all, we got rid of employment discrimination in the private sector in 1964. We came back the next year, 1965, and got the Voting Rights Act. Then 3 years later, we got the Fair Housing Law. And people see this as a building block. So we started out with these prohibitions against discrimination, these what we call Patients' Bill of Rights. And those people who want the public option, who want single payer,
like me,
just stick with us. We'll get there.
And
we couldn't
do
get there in one big leap. Jessie used to be an athlete, you know.
I'm not an athlete, but you know what, Jim? That Rand Paul questions the '64 Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
And how despicable it is for Gingrich to develop as his party line food stamps for Democrats and paychecks for Republicans. The idea is so full of contempt for working poor people. The day you guys up there debating their health care bill, I ran into the Tea Party crowd. One guy came to me, he was rather generous in his spirit. I said, well, why are you here? He said, well, you know, the government's taking over. I said, where are you from? He said, I'm from West Virginia. It happens to be the state with the most federal grants. He had on this oxygen tank trying to breathe. So he left West Virginia, the most endowed state, drove down an interstate highway, breathing on a machine, and Social Security and food stamps. I'm against big government. He could not live another 5 minutes.
Exactly.
He couldn't live 5 more minutes.
Since Congressman Clyburn brought it up, and also we've talked about it on this show as well with Speaker Karen Bass, with Reverend Jessie Jackson, and for those who don't know, Congressman Clyburn is he's the third-ranking leader in the House.
Majority whip.
Yeah, majority whip, and only the second African American to have that position. Do you also see this finance reform, the Wall Street reform, as a situation where we can build on it for those who feel that it hasn't gone far enough?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, we've already started building on it. You know, we did the Wall Street reforms back what we call the Dodd-Frank bill a few months ago, and then on our way out last week or week before, whenever we left town, we passed a new small business bill. And in that bill, we put $30 billion that would allow the leveraging of 10 to 1. It'll be $300 billion of tax credits and loans that could go to small businesses. We have already started building on the reforms that we laid out. And so that's what we're trying to get, especially young voters to understand, that when you work in a process and you can, and you have to fight off the filibusters, sometimes you have to do this thing, sometimes we don't like the word, incrementally, but and sometimes you get to the point where you can kind of shame people into acting, which is what we did with the small business thing. The House kept passing it, sending it over the Senate, passing it, sending it over the Senate, and finally they got to the point where they could pick up 2 or 3 votes and get the thing done. And so we are building upon it. And when in the new Congress, I guarantee you, if Democrats are still in charge, and I expect that that will be the case, President Obama will still be sitting there for at least a solid year before he has to go out and campaign for re-election. We are going to build upon those things further. You
know, Brother Jim, when you mentioned the operative word being incrementally, the bill that Dr. King got passed in '65, we would look upon it today as ridiculous, because the '65 Voting Rights Act did not take into account gerrymandering, annexation, and large roll purchasing schemes.
Absolutely.
Blacks couldn't vote, white women couldn't serve on juries, and farmers who couldn't pay poll taxes couldn't vote. So the '65 Voting Rights Act was really constricted. 1970 to 18 years got the right to vote. That was in 1960. 74, you could vote student residence. You can vote where you attend college. That was 9 years later. 75, bilingual voting. It was 10 years later. My 88 campaign, we changed the laws to proportionality as opposed to winner take all. If you do winner take all, if Hillary Clinton wins, say, California, Texas, and Ohio by a small margin, she's the winner. But then we democratized democracy. And by 1990, we got the Fiscal Disabilities Act, and that's the generation. That's when Congressman Waters, that group came in. It took us 25 years to get from Selma to 1990, more completion of the Voting Rights Act as we know it today. So the health care bill, now that the frame has been set, you'll be adding furniture to the house bit by bit to finally get to single payer and public option, which it must get to.
We're almost out of time. I want to make sure folks know about where these events are. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you all so much for putting so much attention on California. Of course, Speaker Bass has no choice. She's stuck up there with all those crazies.
Well, I tell you, I'm looking forward to serving with Speaker Bass. She's absolutely one of the most incredible public servants I've ever come in contact with. And I'm looking forward to coming out this weekend to operate on her turf a little bit.
California is important, isn't it?
It's a big deal.
I appreciate that.
1/10 of all Americans
I was going
live
to
here.
lose my seat to her.
Well, I tell you, that I do want to say that tomorrow night. Well, tonight, matter of fact, we celebrate my birthday, but it's about something else. As I said, we have children in college, 203 of them in college, and it's really about that. We're going to honor Kermit Alexander, the professional football player whose wife they've adopted 8 Haitian children. We're going to Antoine Fisher, who has such a great story. Born in jail. His mother was sick, really, and never saw his dad, and yet he's emerged as this huge, sensitive writer, producer, and so it's a night of celebrating people whose lives have made us better. But the bottom line is that the resources will go to children. People like Chris Tuck will be there, Congressman Waters will be there, and I'm excited about tonight.
And that's tonight at the Beverly Hilton, right?
Tonight at the Beverly Hilton at 6 o'clock.
And
Well, I wish I could join you there, Reverend Jackson, so I wish you a happy birthday. Well, this is our 99th day without a budget in the state of California, but we're going to get it done today, and I hope to see people on Saturday at Fame Renaissance, 1030, 1968 West Adams Boulevard, so that we can hear more from Mr. Clyburn. And I think we got a sample this morning, and I think it's going to be an exciting Saturday. So I hope everybody comes out.
Speaker Bass, just real quick because we're almost out of time, what should we know about this budget that we're not reading in the LA Times?
Well, there are definite cuts. There's $7.5 billion in cuts. But one thing that I'm very excited about, you remember, Dominique, I said I wasn't going to leave office without my $80 million. And we got our $80 million back in the foster care. The $80 million that the governor cut last year is back in the budget.
Yeah.
CalWorks is protected. We signed a bill yesterday extending services to foster kids until the age of 21. So although our state is still in a recession and there's definite cuts, I do think we have a lot to celebrate with this budget being done.
In church, when the minister makes his 3 points in his conclusion, the Lord said it and so be it, and we're dismissed. In politics, the opposition gets equal time. After that sermon, the opposition has the right to go to the pulpit too. That's what makes it such a slow process. I mean, and so as we're fighting an uphill battle, you got people who are willing to say, our mission is for the president to fail.
Right.
The 64 Public Accommodation Bill should be reconsidered. That our mission, he's a jackass and not born in America, he's not a Christian. This is fierce. This is uglier opposition than we knew in the 60s, Jim. And when you talk about the Wallaces blocking school doors, that was kind of symbolic gesturing. But these guys now dig in, use all their power. And that was when you guys passed the health care bill that day. The people on the floor who are arguing against the health care bill themselves have the health care bill.
Yeah, and a great one at that. Congressman Clyburn, I'm giving you the last word since you have seniority here.
That's the truth.
Well, I meant political seniority, Reverend.
You got both of them.
We're dealing with a lot of people want to know what's going to happen with the black farmers. People worried about the Tea Party. What words would you leave us with today? And of course, we'll see you on Saturday.
Well, I would say to everybody, the black farmers are very near and dear to me. I'm sitting out here looking out at one of the farmers the property of one of the farmers involved in this case. We have passed this bill in the House 4 different times, and it's been filibustered in the Senate. And I think that if there's any metaphor for getting out the vote this year, it is what has happened to black farmers whose livelihoods are being filibustered by Republicans in the Senate. They held Leader Reid hostage all the way up to the last day, promising they were going to vote for it, and at the last moment, one of them raised an objection. And now we hear 3 members had a press conference either yesterday or the day before calling this a fraud, calling the payoff to black farmers who have been discriminated against for almost 50 years, that there's fraud and abuse in the payoff system. That is ridiculous, and that's the kind of thing that they're trying to do to rev up the right wingers in the voting this year. And that's why we call upon our sisters and brothers in urban America to remember those of us who are still down here on the farm.
Thank you so much. We have to go. It's time for the Steve Harvey Morning Show. Reverend Jessie Jackson, Speaker Karen Bass, and Congressman James Clyburn. He will be at the First AME Church tomorrow, 10:30 in the morning. It's free. As you go on your way about your day, folks, let's take a moment for this brief affirmation. Let's take that deep breath in. Let us release. Today, let me remember in all things, success is a journey and not a destination. Till next time, Radio Free Family, one love.